So when you're building a product, you don't want to just build something and be like, I built it, here it is, test it out, see how it is, right? What you want to do is try to get into the mind of consumers and potential customers and say, like, what kind of product do you want?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to The Empire Podcast. Woo! Woo, woo, woo. Interviews. Yes, so we like to interview everyone between pastors and actors and rappers and trappers and everybody in between. And before we get into today's guest, my name is Antonio Lee Miles, the host, of course. But please, everybody, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You know, we're trying to build this up, so we appreciate all your support. So, other than that, let's get into the juice. And we're talking about the juice squeezing our guest, Shamey. Is that correct?
That's correct. You got it.
Man, welcome to the podcast, my brother.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to be here. You know, we're in the Empire, the IE, so feeling good, feeling ready. Super excited to just talk about, the work.
Of course, man. And so how's your day actually been today so far?
It's been good, a little crazy, but for the most part, everything's trending in the right direction. Just, trying to stay productive, stay active, getting it all done.
Man, you got to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to.
Things are piling up. I feel like as we're getting to the end of the year, like that's when everything comes up. All the big deliverables and deadlines. Folks are reaching out. So you gotta stay focused, just really stay on top of it, and trying to finish strong with the year. 2022 has been interesting.
Got you. So what's going on with the deliverables for you?
Yeah, so I run a startup called SARU Recycling, and we essentially focus on building and deploying autonomous, recycling machines that are capable of paying folks to recycle, along with being able to, essentially automatically sort recyclables upon contact. So
nice.
In terms of deliverables, we're in the midst of trying to raise VC funding. We're also trying to build and expand our team. We're trying to really rethink about our brand and how do we communicate our mission and our vision kind of more effectively. So we're doing a lot.
For sure. We'll definitely get more into that business. And you being an entrepreneur, right, as we would say, right? Yeah. For people who don't know who you are and what you do, can you please let us all know who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Shamey Cole. I am the child of Nigerian immigrants.
Gotcha.
Grew up in the IE in
Can
San
we get
Bernardino.
the full name, Shamey?
Oh, you want the full name?
We want to just hit us with it so you can know how.
Everybody only gets it once, right? So you listen up right here. So it's Toluwani Oluwa Shamey Lore Joseph Cole.
Boom, the second. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah. So I have, Nigerian parents. We have those long, elaborate and illustrious names. So, yeah. And it actually means this one belongs to God.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, so continue to tell us who you are and what you do, man.
Absolutely. So, grew up in San Bernardino, just raised, in a single parent household, low income. And I grew up, recycling as a way to be able to, sustain myself, to get some little pocket change as a kid. Everyone wants to buy those chips and drinks after school and whatnot. So I would recycle kind of as a way to, build my income. And when I got to college, I just really became, politically active and just, really a leader on my campus. I had the privilege of serving UC Riverside as a student body president. And, when I was in that position, I had so many opportunities to really see, how things move and work, within a city along with, at a college campus level, and was a part of a lot of green movements happening, right? So at one point I was like the chair of the California Public Interest Group, which was, a grassroots organization focused on sustainability advocacy. Mm-hmm. So that was a big part of kind of my maturation, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as someone who cares about civic and public life. So had the opportunity to do that, and then I also, was student body president, sat on our environmental investments board, helped support a lot of environmental projects from students, just trying to make a change and trying to, fight climate change. And a lot of those experiences were just so influential to me, as I started looking at how can I make a bigger difference in my community. And I remember one day just sitting with some friends, in the middle of our hub, and we were just looking at some folks, throwing things away. And we're like, oh my God, like people are messing it up, when it comes to the recycling versus, the trash bins. And it was like, there's something here, right? There's definitely something we can build off here to, start something that could be influential, right? And we started doing more research. We saw that, Inland Empire has some of the worst air quality in the nation.
Period.
When we think about the influences of that air quality, folks often don't think about municipal solid waste, right? Which is a lot of the waste that we as consumers contribute to. So, the dots started connecting and,
Can you explain what municipal solid waste would be for people who don't really know what that means?
Absolutely. So, you think about municipal solid waste, think about you as a consumer and the things that you throw away, right? So every time you get DoorDash, every time, you're coming back from the store and you have all these different things that you eventually throw away, all that contributes to municipal solid waste, right? You also think about, the waste that's being contributed by, office buildings, by different restaurants, all that comes together and eventually, often goes into landfills, right? And, we currently live in a world, in particular, where we have a recycling crisis, right? Where so many tons of recyclable material that could have been reused for other materials are honestly just going into our landfills and again, affecting our environment. So, we as a company, are really dedicated to fighting climate change regionally by looking at, the waste management infrastructure that currently exists and looking at new ways to insert data, AI, automation, right, to really change things. So, long story short, I'm an urban environmentalist. I care about the planet. I grew up in San Bernardino and I want to make a difference.
I like it. Would you consider yourself the recycling man of the IE?
I'll take it. Hey, you just bestowed me with the crown. I'll rise up to it.
Man, that's how we do it here.
The recycling man of the IE. Ooh.
Right? Is that the first time you heard that?
That's the first time.
I knight thee, recycling man of the IE.
Ooh.
On the Empire Podcast, we be doing things that people haven't done or heard before, and so that's what we're doing here. I was going to ask you a little bit about your origin story, but I think you kind of touched a little bit on it about coming from Nigerian parents, coming from Nigeria, going to New York, unless there's some other details that you want to throw in and tell us. But I want to actually talk about before we get into SARU, can we talk about a little bit about the place that we're in right now?
Yeah. Oh, so we're actually in the Inland Empire Center for Community Organizing, right? So this is a really interesting kind of co-working space where different organizations and whatnot, all come together, one, to work on their own individual projects, but to have, kind of cross conversations, around the work, right? How can we organize together? How can we work together? How can we build together? All that stuff happens. So privileged enough to be able to be in the space. I'm actually in the space because of a different project that I also lead. It's a nonprofit in the COVID equity space.
Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I actually started a nonprofit last year with a good friend of mine, Samuel Roberts. It's called San Bernardino for Rapid Recovery. We actually focus on COVID equity and rapid health intervention through the lens of community. So we try to, kind of bring a mutual aid approach, blending in, grassroots organizing, public health, as well as street medicine to really be at the center, of the community with the provision of resources when it comes to COVID. So things like masks, rapid tests, thermometers, up-to-date information about things like, childcare, food insecurity, rental assistance, legal aid services. So, we try to just be at the forefront of, trying to support folks, who are confused, who are dealing with the anxiety and depression that comes with this pandemic, right?
Yeah.
And we're trying to be
lack of human-to-human contact and stuff like that.
Exactly, right? So, we believe in organizing, and we believe that is a central way to get the information out there. A big pillar of our work that, is still in development is being able to actually bring vaccines to your doorstep. So we believe in this model of vaccinations for all, right? So that we can actually bring a nurse or a doctor or a medical student, to essentially come to your home at your own convenience and get you vaccinated quickly, easy, efficiently, and for free.
That's cool. When you say street medicine, I immediately went to weed, cannabis. Because you think street pharmacists. I'm like, okay, I guess it's part of the COVID relief program.
Pharmaceuticals.
I'm like, okay, street medicine. Can you elaborate a little bit more when you say street medicine?
Street medicine is honestly a concept where where folks aren't hindered, by the confines of a hospital for medical care.
Okay.
It focuses on, being able to be mobile out in the street. And honestly, there's a strong tie to being able to help the homeless with street medicine, right? So being able to serve folks that are houseless, going into their communities, checking up on them and seeing what kind of services that they need. So that's kind of a little bit of a backstory when it comes to the concept of street medicine.
I got you. I like you. And it's for people who maybe need some of this information. How can they reach you? How can they find this?
Absolutely. You can look up San Bernardino for Rapid Recovery on Instagram. We also have a website that's coming out in the next few weeks where you can also find that. You can also find me on social media. I am Shemi Cole, and it's SEMICOLE. Nigerian spellings and pronunciations, they'd be different.
Can you spell out the name for the actual page?
Yeah. So it's SB Rapid Recovery on Instagram.
Gotcha. Cool. And man, that's awesome. Very awesome. How long you guys been doing it for?
So we've been doing it since last year,
Okay.
And we were lucky enough to get grant funding earlier this year to really expand our operations. We were able to hire 20 folks to be out in the community and really talk to more folks. We went to, different stores, community spaces, public parks, and talk to folks, really about the movement that we're trying to push, which is COVID recovery, right?
Okay.
And what that means is that we want to be able to, one, tackle COVID, but also look at the historic health inequities that have existed in the region of the Inland Empire.
Got you. What's one of the most surprising things or things that you didn't know about that you learned, especially in this community, in the Inland Empire community, by doing this nonprofit?
Yeah, I think what I've really learned is that information isn't as ubiquitous as people think, right?
Absolutely.
Like folks are like, oh, well, it's on the internet. You figure it out. You can Google it, right?
Accessible to everybody.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, our community has a lot of issues, right? Like you think about the digital divide. Not everyone has access to high-speed internet, right? And at the same time, for folks that do, there's a lot of misinformation out there, right? And at the same time, even with all of that, folks are living their lives. Everybody's trying to make it. Everybody's trying to, do their own thing. So you can't fault or blame folks for not knowing things, right? And I think something that I've learned for doing this work is that, the only way to really, influence folks in our community, for the public good and the greater public interest, it comes through human conversations, right? And I think what I've learned is being able to be on the ground, talk to folks, hear their stories. It's been such a powerful experience, when learning about, one, their feelings and thoughts around COVID, but also some of the other issues that they're experiencing, right? Because COVID just exacerbated some of the greater issues that, exist, in California and in the IE, right?
Especially poorer communities.
Yeah, low income, folks dealing with, there's a lot of food deserts in our community as well. Folks who are looking for work, folks who need assistance with rent, folks who are, who need legal assistance, right? There's so much work that needs to be done. And, I have the privilege of being able to work, with folks who work in this building. And, we get to kind of work together, connect with resources and then kind of spread the word across the Inland Empire, San Bernardino more specifically.
Nice. Give them the shout out, some of the people that you've worked with. Give some shout outs to them.
One, I got to thank the Riverside Black Chamber of Commerce. They've been incredibly influential and supportive. We actually launched a project with them called Trim the Hesitancy, where we go to actual local barbershops and talk to them about COVID and support. So, love folks there. Also really supportive of the San Bernardino free clinic. They've allowed us to go to several of their free clinics and talk to a lot of their patients that are coming in, seeking medical support. So we've been able to work with them and support them. And there's a lot of folks that have been able to support us and who have just, given us, advice, turned us in the right direction, given us exposure and whatnot. So greatly thankful for everyone.
Nice. What's one of the best advice you've gotten so far?
Ooh, great question. I think it's, to persist, right? This work is difficult for a number of reasons, right? One, for the fact that things are growing and changing with COVID every day, right? We just had President Biden say COVID is over. We just had, the president of the World Health Organization say, well, it's not over, but we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right? So there's just a lot of information out there. There's also a lot of
misinformation too, right?
Exactly. Misinformation and resistance that we do come into contact with when we talk to folks, out on the street and whatnot.
Can you elaborate on the resistance?
I think, great question. When it comes to resistance, I think, folks aren't completely bought and sold on, all the information that's out there. I think, we had a vaccine that came out incredibly quickly, thanks to modern day science and a lot of grit and determination by, our health clinicians and for folks working in scientific research and whatnot. But I think resistance has really been just like folks needing more information and folks not necessarily being comfortable, getting the vaccine right off the bat. You know what I mean? And I think that is where we come in, where we have conversations, where we talk to folks, where we give them, data and research, where we give them, things to take home and for things for them to ruminate with, even after we're gone, right? If folks don't want, to get the vaccine, no one's telling you that you absolutely have to, right? We're trying to empower you with more information and say, hey, brother, hey, sister, here's what the data says. Here's what we're seeing in our community. We want you to be safe. We want you to be healthy. If you don't want to get the vaccine, here are other things that you can do to make sure that you're protected. We do encourage you to do so. So I think it's just, trying to lead with empathy. And I think resistance is natural, when we're in a state of crisis,
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the hive mentality for like the hive immunity?
Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on naturopathics remedies to avoiding the vaccine?
For me, I honestly believe in the vaccine. I believe in science. I believe in trusting our medical health professionals. And I think that's always the best way to lead. At the same time, if folks want to explore other methods, I caution them because at the end of the day, San Bernardino in particular had the second highest mortality rate of any county in California as a result of COVID, right? And I think some folks often will lean to other remedies to get out of taking the vaccine, to get out of wearing a mask, to get out of, taking tests, to see if they have COVID or not. And I think that can be dangerous, but at the end of the day, everyone has to make the decision for themselves. So I respect what folks choose to do, with their own bodies, but I strongly encourage them to pursue, what is in line with modern science.
Gotcha.
And as a whole, I think for me, I see myself as a doer, right? Kind of like swirling back to SARU a little bit, I'm the kind of person, growing up, I've always been, rather enterprising. I've always loved to be involved in my community, whether it's clubs and organizations, whether it be starting my own thing, whether it be, being an avid participant and coming to conferences and events. And I think, after a while, you just come to a point where it's like, I need to contribute, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that each of us are called to do, contributing in our own ways, whether it be you with your podcast, with showcasing different leaders and interesting folks in the Inland Empire doing incredibly different things, or be me with, my nonprofit and my startup.
Gotcha. So talking about SARU, let's focus on the name. What does the name mean and where did it come from?
So the name, SARU is spelled SARU, and it stands for Smart Automated Recycling Unit.
Okay.
And essentially, it kind of came from a variety of, ideas that we just came up with. I think at one point we were like, it should be called Bottle Bank because we're going to get money for the recyclables that you put in, and other times, we ran through a plethora of different names, and the idea also changed. I remember at one point, SARU Recycling was supposed to be a lid that you'd attach to different bins, and from that kind of idea, we were hoping to give money via the lid and whatnot, and that didn't work. So the idea evolved just as the name did, and right now what SARU is again an autonomous bin, right, that's capable of sorting diverse types of waste, right? So you approach the bin, it is motion detection, so you just swipe your hand over it and it opens, and you throw your bottle, your piece of food, or whatever type of waste that you want to insert within it.
It'll take food as well.
Yeah, it'll. We've been working a lot on being able to train our model to look at food waste as well, because that's a big issue in California that we're seeing a lot of legislation move around, and with that in particular, right, we want to be able to separate different types of recyclables and different types of waste more generally, so that we can prevent recycling and waste contamination and commingling, right? And what that means is, you look at your average recycling bin, it's synonymous with a trash can, because people put all sorts of things in recycling bins. And there's a concept called wish cycling, where folks are like, I hope this is going to the right place.
Got you. Am I putting the right plastic in the right bin?
Yeah, you either have the situation where it's one bin and people put all sorts of things into it, or it's 5 bins and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what goes where, right?
I'm confused.
And I think for our product in particular, what we hope to do is eliminate that kind of confusion entirely, right? We use an object recognition system within our bin itself, right, to be able to, one, detect the type of material, authenticate it and confirm that it is that type of material, and then put it in the right place. So we have different bins within the central bin, and then afterwards, we're able to send you electronically the money, the scrap value essentially, which is the value of the material. We send it directly to you via our mobile app, and you're able to kind of have it in your virtual wallet via our app.
Gotcha. How big is the initial bin?
It's 5 feet by 5 feet.
5 feet by 5 feet?
Yeah, and it's capable of storing over 360 pounds of different types of material.
Cool. So can you give us all and you can, if you want to talk to the camera, don't. Feel free to, you can if you want.
I'm just kind of talking to you.
But if you want to address them, don't be afraid. You're good, right? It's us, but it's you. It's all of us. But hey,
what's up?
But can you give us a good starting process? Okay, I come to the machine I have plastic bag, I have leftover burrito. Can you guide us the process of when we come to your box machine? What do we do?
Okay, so
step
Antonio,
process.
you're at Stater Brothers. You're looking for a place to throw all your bottles. You come up to the bin. You essentially use the motion detection. You put the bottles into the bin. It detects the type of material. It sorts it automatically.
And you just wave your hand for the motion detector?
For the motion detector.
And then it opens up?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, it's a quick process, right? We want to be able to optimize it for efficiency. Nobody wants to waste an incredible amount of time throwing away things, right? It's supposed to be quick, immediate, and efficient. But what we're trying to do is just make it more impactful, right? Like a lot of folks are designing solutions that are looking to make more folks environmentalists. And the reality is a lot of folks simply don't necessarily care, right? So with our product in particular, we are trying to strike at more compelling incentives and make it a gamified process, right? Like you think of the gig economy, right? Folks, nobody wants to drive their friend to the airport, right? But if you're driving for Lyft and you're going to get paid, you're going to do it, right? With us, we're trying to bring the gig economy to sustainable action and make it synonymous with that.
Can you explain for people who may not know what the gig economy is?
Yeah. So gig economy, is really how do I describe it? It's complicated, right? I think a primary example of the gig economy is jobs that allow you a lot of flexibility and freedom to work on your own schedule.
DoorDash, Uber,
TaskRabbit. There's a lot of gig economy jobs that are growing, and gig economy is changing, right? It's essentially this new workforce where folks can do short-term gigs and be able to get payment from it, and it's changing, it's moving. But we want to do something similar, but with small feats of sustainable action, right? Just throwing away a bottle into the right bin, can be revolutionary and transformational when it comes to the environment. So we want to really create a new wave of folks that care about waste, right? And if you don't care necessarily about waste, at the very least, you care about getting that little money.
A little change, right? Which is really cool. Number one, really great idea, by the way. But so let's go back to the process, right? So I have a bag full of stuff. I come to the box. I wave my hand. The lid opens.
Yeah.
What's next?
So you put your bottles into the bin, and essentially, again, it authenticates the bottles.
Okay.
So making sure that, this is plastic, this is glass, this is aluminum, this is food waste, or this is general waste, right?
Okay.
And then from there,
What's general waste? What's considered general waste?
general waste is anything we currently cannot identify as one of the other initial types of waste.
So like a shirt will count as general waste?
Yeah, shirt will count as general waste.
And I'll get money for that.
No. So what you get money for, that's a great question as well, is the recyclables. But our bin is capable of sorting different types of waste.
Okay.
Yeah.
And recyclables is the bottles.
Yeah.
And the food waste or no?
No, food waste isn't currently a type of recyclable. At least that's being credited by the state.
Okay.
So if you ever look at your average bottle, there's this thing on it called CRV, so the California Redemption Value.
Yes.
And as a consumer, whenever you buy any kind of waste, any kind of recyclable, you actually pay a tax, which is that value in particular.
True.
And then you're supposed to be able to get that money back if you actually turn it into a recycling center. So recycling centers, right?
Of course.
You go after church or family parties when you collect all your bottles and you're like, hey, but we've actually seen 40% of recycling centers disappear from the state of California because of labor costs since 2018. And, we're hoping to kind of disrupt that market as well, because if you look at that kind of process, right, first and foremost, you got to get all the bottles together. You got to, find out where the local recycling center is. You got to hope that when you get there, it's open.
Yep.
Then you got to wait in line, right? Then you got to do sort the recyclables yourself, right?
Very true.
And then someone gives you a receipt. Then you got to go into the store, wait in line again, and then redeem that for money. So for us, you don't have to stockpile, right? So you don't have to, get all the bottles together. Every single time you have a bottle, when you throw it in our bin, your money keeps building, right?
On the app.
And you can get that, you get that money just like it's Apple Pay, right? It's with some quick immediacy, right? Like almost like Venmo, right? When your friend sends you the money, it's like, boom, it's in my account, just like that, right? And
Gotcha.
what we do as well is, you can transfer to bank, right? So once you're in the app and you have the funds that are being loaded, you can send that money directly to your bank account. You can actually donate it to local charities in the area, right? If you want to actually, contribute, socially to, different organizations that are doing good work, right? So you can do that. We're working on integrations with micro-investing apps like Acorn or Robinhood or Stash.
Okay, that'd be cool.
You could actually be building your financial portfolio just by recycling. And we're also...
Even CashApp or Venmo would be pretty cool too.
Right, CashApp or Venmo, right? Or even being able to look at cryptocurrency exchanges as well, right? Like how can you, again, start building your crypto portfolio just by, recycling?
Recycling, that's another good way. Nice. So once, going back to the process, actually first, before we get into the process, shout out your app.
It's called SARU Recycling, but it's still...
Spell it out for them.
Yeah, SARU, and then recycling is RECYCLING.
Nice. So back to the streamlined process, right? So I wave my hand, it opens up, I put all my bottles inside, and is there like a button that says finish? What happens after that when I'm done?
Essentially, after a given amount of time, once you're no longer putting any bottles into the bin, the entry point closes, and then from there, things are sorted.
It automatically closes by itself after a certain time period. And then, in order to use it, you have to have the app?
So in order to redeem the value of the material, you have to have the app.
Gotcha.
But in order to just use the material or use the bin itself, you can just put the material in and be on your way.
Gotcha. So if I have a bottle that says 5 cents, boom, put it in, I get 5 cents.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Is there any deductible happening during now I want to try, because you know how you use Venmo, CashApp, all these PayPal, they take a percentage. Is there a percentage that's taken away from us when we put it back into our account?
A percentage?
Yeah, so if you use like CashApp, for example, say it's like, hey, I want $20. You send me $20, but if I redeem it, I only get like $19.25 or something.
Yeah, I mean, so ultimately with a lot of apps, there is that kind of percentage that's taken away when you redeem it.
Okay.
And that comes only from the bigger companies that allow those kind of integrations, right? Because there always has to be, there are companies that specifically work with getting the money that you have in your app account to your bank account, and there's always a percentage that's taken away.
It's kind of like unavoidable. It happens because someone needs to pay for that transmission happening, this app to work, to people who maintain the app. So it makes sense. It's kind of I had to ask because I'm pretty sure people are probably like, what? But regardless, the concept's amazing. The concept is super cool.
And what I will say is the app is still in development. We haven't launched on the App Store yet, but when we do, we'll know about it.
Got you. So it's not in the App Store yet?
No.
So how will people get to redeem their money?
So in order to redeem, well, first and foremost, we're a startup, right? So a lot of it's still in development. What we've been doing right now is more product testing. So like testing how the app, essentially works when connected to the bin and whatnot, when folks utilize it and whatnot. So we've been running focus groups where we've tested out the kind of configurations, the ease of use, and just optimizing the process so that it's just far more easier.
Gotcha. So how recent is the SARU?
So good question. So we came to be really in the pandemic, right? Like I remember, things really coming into play like late, 2019, early 2020 in particular. And a lot of the work really happened in 2020, like in the mid to late 2020, because, when you first come together as a group of college kids, trying to do this and trying to make it all work, we're creating a startup for the very first time. We're learning, right? We're, trying to figure out, what is this product? What is the value that we want to be able to generate for the consumer? What are the different things that we need to anticipate, as we keep building this type of product in particular. So, a lot of it has just been incremental growth, right? Experimentation, research, a lot of research, and just grit and determination, right? We've, competed in pitch competitions. We were just last year in the Blackstone Launchpad pitch competition.
Okay. Where was that at?
It was online.
Okay, cool.
And we were actually top 7 in the nation for startups.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So we feel really good. We're trying to do something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's a process and it takes time, and we're just continually trying to push forward and trying to build something that, one, the community can use and find value in, but something that can also change, how modern recycling is done.
Gotcha. So what would you say the ETA of maybe having everything done, the app is done, gonna have the product out completely? What do you think the ETA is for that?
That's a great question. I will direct that question back to all the funders that we're trying to talk to.
Funders, shout out to you guys.
Shout out to funders, yo, hit us up. But yeah, I think the goal would be hopefully within the next year, if not a year and a half, to be able to start selling to entities like universities. We're also looking at municipalities like cities. We're looking at
courthouse or something.
Yeah, grocery stores, private venues like, the Dodger Stadium or the Staples Center, right?
The Orange Show.
Exactly. We'd love to be in a lot of those different places and spaces, and it just takes one, capital to be able to build this product to scale, right? Mm-hmm. And then two, just being able to capture the interest of folks that can see the value of this product. And one thing I didn't mention is, when you think about SARU as a product, it really serves two folks, right? One, the users that come to utilize the bin and get the value out of, being able to recycle and get that money back. But there's also the firms, right, or the businesses that lease the bin from us, right? So what we do is we give them, a network of bins that they can put in a given area, and what they can do is they get data specifically on everything that is being recycled, right? So we let you know specifically, if a bin is reaching capacity and say it's at 75%, when to take it out versus having to check a bin every single day and hope that it's, reaching capacity, right? So what we do is, we can let folks know, and let's say, our bin is at UC Riverside, right? Let's say they have 30 bins on a college campus. Instead of having to check 30 bins every single day, we can let them know what bins need to be taken care of, and we can develop an optimized route for them to be able to take care of those bins, right? So we can actually save time on how much labor is applied that's out in the field, as well as the efficiency of transportation of picking up that waste as well.
Which is, who wouldn't want to hear that?
Right.
Which founder wouldn't want to know that type of information? Yeah. And say a founder is listening to this video, watching, How can they, if they wanted to support, well, how can they find you?
Yeah, I mean, Shamie Cole. I am Shamie Cole, so I am, and then SEMICOLE. Definitely hit me up. You can find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I'm sure my information will be in the details and whatnot. So you can find me there, and you can also find us at SARU Recycling on Instagram as well, and we're also on LinkedIn.
I think it's super bomb. Do you guys have any recycling bins currently out in the public? Currently?
Yeah, so we actually have one that we've been doing testing at Goodwin's Organics in Riverside. So it's actually right behind UC Riverside.
Right behind. Can you?
It's on Big Springs Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Riverside?
In Riverside.
Gotcha. And what have you guys learned from that bin so far?
So I think a lot of it's been kind of just usability, right? Like, how do we make sure folks understand what this bin is, right? Because, you see a blue box, in the corner, looks like, some kind of robot,
Yeah.
What is that, right? So how do we make the bin look approachable? How do we communicate its usability right off the bat? How do we optimize for, user interactions when they're actually interacting with the bin itself, right? We have been looking at a lot of those pieces, right, to be able to refine the product, to make it more usable and intuitive.
Gotcha. And what has it been telling you? What has it been telling you guys?
I think in the beginning it was like, we have to anticipate for a variety of different customers utilizing the bin, because often, folk, even just like the height of the entry point, right, is something that you have to consider.
Like short, some people that are too short that can't reach or something.
Yeah, some people who are too short, some people that are too tall,
Okay.
some folks that, might have disabilities and whatnot, right? Like you have to really think about different types of user interactions and cases that, so that you can optimize a product that's usable for a variety of different folks, right? I think additionally as well, we've learned a lot of things about just, engineering, right? How do you build a product and make sure that it works? So that's also been a big piece of the product as well. And looking at, how do we, again, keep driving incentives so that folks want to use it, even folks that don't care about recycling in the environment.
Gotcha. What I've been learning about like business and marketing, sometimes you just got to be like as simple and as big as possible for people. It was like, okay, recycling, automotive, just say recycling, automotive, get paid, QR code right next to it.
Recycling, get paid.
Yeah, simple,
That's our tagline. Or at one point we used to say, recycling just makes sense.
Okay.
With the dollar sign. And
I got
whatnot,
you. Or the cent sign, the little C with the, I think you're going to get a lot more information from this test, and I think it's super amazing. And one thing that I've been super interested about is the development of it, because it's really technologically advanced. Who was behind that?
So we had a team, a team of folks that came together, our founding team, and we built it together, right?
Okay. So you have some background in technology?
I don't necessarily have any background in engineering, but I have background in building products based off of user feedback, right?
Okay.
So when you're building a product, you don't want to just build something and be like, I built it, here it is, test it out, see how it is, right? What you want to do is try to get into the mind of consumers and potential customers and say, like, what kind of product do you want, right? And that is the very beginning of the product development cycle, right? So you look for the problem and you start to filter out for what are potential solutions, right? And then from there, what you'd start doing is configuring, potential options of what that product might be, right? So I think one of the first things that we did when we first started SARU was, we got together and we said, what is the problem, right? The problem is that, we have a recycling crisis where millions of tons of recyclable material are going into landfills when they could have been recycled. The second issue is that recycling is confusing, right? Like, it's either, recycling bins are trash cans, or there's tons of recycling bins and nobody knows what to actually do with it, right? So how do we make a product that makes it, very intuitive, a seamless process, convenient, and incentive driven, right? And one of the more compelling reasons why people recycle, in the state of California and in the nation is because you get that money back, right? That was one of the initial prospects behind, creating CRV, right? So through looking at different steps like that, kind of doing that thought leadership, right? That's the strategy development behind the product. We began to build what would become SARU, right? And then from there, the idea kept maturing. We participated in a variety of competitions where, industry experts asked us questions. They're like, what about this use case? Or what about that use case? What are you thinking about this in terms of, political governance, right? What are you thinking about this in terms of usability? What do you think about this in terms of marketing, right? So like a startup is a constant process of pivoting and refinement. And we're lucky enough to have been, fairly battle tested, and we're still, moving higher and higher, trying to improve the product as much as we can.
Yeah, and keep going. And shout out to the team. Shout out to the team because can't do anything without a team. I feel like.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And I'm curious, for you in particular, like for your creative process, how did you get your origin? How did that start to come to fruition, right? What were like the early stages
Of my creativity?
of your creativity, of the podcast, of your thesis as an artist? Right?
I consider them two separate things, my creativity and the podcast. I bring my creativity to the podcast and make the podcast creative. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
My creativity starts from poetry and hip hop.
Oh yeah,
That's where it starts from, self-expression. Well, I think all creativity is about self-expression.
absolutely.
And that's where my creativity started and my origin. And then I just kind of expanded by creating worlds, because I think creativity is creation, creativity, creation, creating.
I feel like you're spitting some bars right now.
Right? So it's all about creation and giving and showing love. I think, so for me, I think just like creating is like a sword. It's neither good nor bad. It just depends on who holds it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just like the nuclear bomb is not, or they say E equals MC squared isn't bad. It just depends on who had it. So when Einstein had it, it wasn't bad. But when someone else had it, they created the nuclear bomb. So ideas and creation is not bad. It's just depending on who has it that makes it bad.
Definitely.
Kind of going a little far off with it, but that's kind of like my tip on it. If that answers your question. I'm not sure if that answered your question too well.
I think you brought up a new topic that I'd like to explore,
Please,
right?
go for it.
I think the medium in which we are creative is so interesting and important. And I think for me, I was definitely influenced by hip hop and just the poets of our generation. And if in another life, if I had the talent, I would love to be an artist and go into that kind of world in particular. But I think
You're an artist.
I am.
You're just painting with a different canvas.
Exactly. And I think it's the canvas that is so interesting, because for me, I always felt like I was an idea guy, right? Like I always thought about, why does this work this way? Why can't we do this differently? Or like, what if someone did this, or what if someone decided to wear their shoes like that, or create this type of, website or this type of app and whatnot. And I think for me, I've always been on a constant process of finding what my startup is or what my product is. And lucky enough with SARU, it really touched a nerve for me, because growing up, I recycled. That was how I got, my change as a kid, right? That's how I was able to, buy things for myself. And, it's what led me to be able to, just feel a little sense of financial freedom, as a youth, right? Because, if your mom says, no, you can't buy that, and you're like, well, I can buy it myself. You're like, oof,
Boom, I'm getting them chips.
Exactly. So I think, as an entrepreneur, it's allowed me to be creative, again, using a different canvas. And it's something that I love so much, because it requires a lot of creativity, but it also requires a lot of other complementary skill sets that you need, right? Being able to evangelize, speak with passion and create a vision for folks to really tap into, research and being able to do your due diligence. And stay up to date with what's happening in relation to, how science and technology are moving forward, how policy is affecting such as well. It requires a certain level of empathy, right? Looking at how would your consumer potentially interact with this product, right? And thinking about the different cases in which they will come to terms with understanding what you're trying to give to them. And then also just trying to build, future-proof the idea, right? Like, this is step one, or this is phase one, phase two. What does the future of this look like?
Yeah. What's the next phases? And what was I gonna say? I don't know. The thing that's coming to me right now is that I see you. SARU's not your end; it's your beginning, if that makes sense.
That's
right?
the hope, yeah.
It's definitely the beginning, and it's definitely going to expand. It's definitely going to get better. You're definitely going to see more things, and I'm excited to see. And we'll definitely do a follow-up and talk more about it. But what I want to talk about is I watched an interview with Kevin Hart on Drink Champs. And what
I love Drink Champs.
Yeah, what he said recently was he was giving Nori his flowers because Nori started off as a rapper, and then he is now doing podcasts, obviously. And he said something along the lines of, yeah, you can be successful once, but it really shows, or you can win once, but it really shows that you're a winner when you can win in more than one thing, right? And so I just wanted to tell you that because I know, you're also doing the nonprofit with the COVID relief and stuff like that and the SARU. And so I see other great things happening for you. So, you're a winner, and there's going to be other things that you're going to be winning in along with SARU and stuff. And so that, the energy just told me to bring that and share that with you, Shamie, so you can understand that and know that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. That's the hope, you know what I mean? I think...
Listen, that is what will happen.
That's the reality. That's what we're living in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Like, the words we say matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Words we say matter, and is there anything else you would like to share with us that we may or may not know?
I think what I stand for as an individual is that, even though I'm on my own path, on my own journey, building my own startup, nonprofit, et cetera, what I am doing is something that I hope to inspire other folks to do as well, right? I grew up, we were talking about it earlier, reading articles or, seeing just these different like newscasters, like talking to these, 12-year-old boys or, these 10-year-olds or 16-year-olds that, have like a multi-million-dollar business or just created this app or just did this interesting venture or project. And growing up, I was always like, damn, like, how can I be like that, right? Kid growing up in San Bernardino, just like, oh my God, like, I want to do something like that, and I think, coming up from this community in particular, we have something that other folks don't have. And each of us have to decide that for ourselves, right? Like, what is that piece of creativity, of determination, of insight that you've been able to glean from your community that's made you stronger as an individual? But what I say is, often, when we're in rooms with these people, right? These people that are so smart and grandiose that do these things.
Yeah.
These folks are not better than us. They're not more creative than us. They're not, in often cases, I don't think they're more intelligent than us. I think a lot of folks are where they're at because of connections, and a lot of things that other folks have curated for them, right? And, obviously there are folks that are determined and win, but we also have that same source of determination as well. So I hope to just inspire folks to recognize that, our community has geniuses, it has greatness, inside of us. And I hope that everyone, finds what their product is or what their startup is or nonprofit or talent and skill. And I hope they put that effort and energy into, being what they can be with that in particular.
Yeah, 100%, and, I think a big thing is, like, I think you're saying, is access. I think access, representation also matters, and then nepotism is real.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why there's food deserts, and if your grandmother was poor, most likely you'll be poor, is because the information hasn't been spread, or given, or the access. Or there's a reason why someone who's rich, their grandparent is rich, is usually they're rich because the information and the access to the information and access to things is available to them. So, people in lower communities and struggle because of the access and the representation and the idea of saying, man, can I do this? And it does take a different mind. That's the key word, mind, to be like, you know what? I can do this. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's what separates the curd from the whey, as they say. I'm going to figure this out, right? Because there are a lot of people who are from poor communities who do make it out because they're just like, I know I'm worth more, I know I can do more, and I know I can be as great as possible.
Absolutely.
And it separates the two.
And I feel like we're called to be the generation that breaks the chains of, our systemic oppression, right? Or the generational trauma that, a lot of us have incurred, right? Like, we need to be the ones that are really speaking truth. What is it they say? Speaking truth to power, or speaking things into existence and saying, I'm going to be the one that's going to help move my family out of poverty, or I'm going to be the one that stands up for my community on this issue. I'm going to be the one that, I'm going to be the, San Bernardino, Elon Musk, or whatever your thing is, right? We have to be the ones to do it because, the urgency is there, right? And our community deserves better, and I think it's just up to us, each of us. If you're hearing this podcast, we're talking to you. We have to be the ones that just, stand up and be the difference, right? To be the ones that we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and nothing gets done without moving. So you got to move. You can't just talk about and talk and talk. You can talk all day, but you got to move. Action matters.
Action
Faith
matters.
without action is dead, as they say.
Yeah.
As the book says, the Bible says. Shamey, what current projects are you working on?
So I do have my hands full with SARU as well as San Bernardino for Rapid Recovery. I have some other ideas that are kind of bacon in the oven. You know what I mean? But I'm hoping to really just put a lot more effort into San Bernardino Rapid Recovery and SARU and get them to a healthier place in terms of funding. And then from there, I definitely want to experiment with some other things. But, I do a lot of work in the community, just supporting other organizations and groups that are doing amazing things as well. So I want to keep doing that. And I do, eventually want to start some other projects. But we'll keep that on the lid for now.
Keep it on the low. You're gonna keep it on the low.
Yeah.
You're gonna do an OnlyFans. No, just fucking around. Dope. So I remember a question I was gonna ask, which is what's been one of the most difficult things and eye-opening things having a startup?
Oh my God, great question. Well, I went to college. I was a political science major and I studied public policy, right? So when it came to starting a startup, I was, at a loss for words, at the very beginning, right? Luckily, I had the opportunity to start studying, business and whatnot. So I started looking a lot, deeper into the work and doing my own research. But I think just coming to terms with the things that I know and the things that I don't know, right? And being able to, work within my strengths to overcome those weaknesses and to recognize that, like, even if I'm not an engineer, right, I can still support and build this company, with the help of others, as well as, leveraging what already exists in the market, right? There are companies, manufacturers that will build your product for you, right? There are companies that can give you feedback on design, right? There are companies that, want to invest in ideas, and I think coming to terms with that was a lot, and just learning that, right? Because again, we're not kids that went to Stanford where things like this are spoon-fed for us. You know what I mean?
Access.
We have to get it up on our own and do our own research and build our own connections and win people over with, our talents and our skills.
I like it. So that's one of the biggest things you have to find out on your own.
Yeah.
I got you. So you're a young man, right, Shemi?
I'm getting a little old.
What do you consider old?
I don't know. I don't want to say nothing.
I figured you wanted to.
But I don't know. I'm 27.
Okay.
I'm turning
You're a young
28
man.
next year. So
He's a young man.
you know,
He's a young man.
yeah, still young at heart for sure.
He's a young man. These people think that 30 is old. Laugh at them, guys. Laugh at him. Laugh at him. Say he's a baby. He's a baby still, right? It's hilarious. Shamey, the reason why I ask is because 100 years, let's say 100 years have passed after you have lived on this earth. 200 years have passed. What would you like your empire to have looked like once you're gone?
I love it. What I'm invested in, and I think SARU is the beginning of that, is building sustainable communities in places where they're often considered as low income. You know what I mean? I want to look at some of the environmental challenges that exist in those communities in particular and see how we can build innovative products or businesses or job opportunities that can really, one, address those issues more specifically, but in addition to that, create opportunities for other folks to engage, right? I think one of the biggest things about SARU is, we want to be able to give folks the ability to gain financial value by doing the right thing, recycling, right? And I hope to look at other products, or projects in particular that can help do that, right? Like, I want to turn, San Bernardino, into communities that are quote unquote the more affluent and blah 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 blah. And I don't want to do so in a way that obviously gentrifies our community or pushes folks out. I want to see economic investment come to the Inland Empire in a way that transforms it and uplifts folks that are traditionally low income, folks that have been discounted and forgotten often. And there's so many ways to do that, right? But also I have a very sci-fi brain, you know what I mean?
Right. You need it though.
It'd be cool to just have our own little space program or automated flying cars, all this stuff, you know what I mean?
It's possible.
But step by step, I hope to be someone that can inspire different levels of entrepreneurship come to my community, right? And I hope we can advance in a technological way that can help, support as well as, uplift those that need it most.
I love it.
Yeah.
And that's what you like your empire to look like.
Yes.
I love it.
The king of recycling. Welcome to recycling land.
The IE man of recycling.
Yeah.
I love it. So, Shamey, Cole, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's honestly an honor and a privilege, and I'm inspired by the work you do. I'm trying to start my own podcast, hopefully one day. And I appreciate you shining a light on the leaders in the Inland Empire that are doing the work and are trying to build.
Of course, man. I think I'm just trying to I'm just moving the way I move, and I think if you like it, support, listen, whatever. I'm just trying to add value, I guess is the term. But for people who would love to contact you, reach you. I know you mentioned it a couple times, but can you please tell us one more last time how people can reach you, contact you if they want to network with you, support you, anything like that? Just let the audience know how they can do that.
Absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram at I am Shamey Cole. So IAMSEMICOLE. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Shamey Cole. You can find SARU at SARU Recycling, so SARU and then recycling on Instagram. You can also find us on LinkedIn similarly as well.
Boom. And there you have it, folks. It's been a great podcast. Learned a lot. I really like the idea. I think it's a really cool idea, and it's definitely going to blow up. And I think the more people who know about it and see it, and whether it's a big red arrow pointing saying, "Hey, recycling, get money. You don't have to worry about sorting." Whatever. It's gonna blow and it's gonna spread. And I can see it at festivals. I can see it at schools. I can see it everywhere. This is just the beginning, and you're getting the first taste here. But other than that, you guys, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment down what you thought about the conversation today. If you want to support the podcast, you can CashApp $TheeEmpirePodcast. It'll be the link in the description. All the information that Shamey said today, it'll be in the description. My name is Antonio D. Miles. Yes, put respect on the name. Other than that, stay tuned for more stuff to come. And books available too. So until next time, folks, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.
I say it's my duty. Yeah. Is it my will? Yeah. To do what? Yeah. To do what's right. I say. That's it.
Awesome, brother. That was great. I loved it.
Not too shabby, right?
Yeah, definitely great vibes. And a good conversation. I appreciate your questions. I think they really hit a lot of interesting, unique points. Hopefully my responses, lived up to the great questions you asked as well.
You can answer that if you want. Or...
I'm so sorry. I literally turned it off. Okay, I think we are good.